All right, good morning. This is our live and online Authentisign training class. And this is our third recorded class that we've done since we started doing this. So I thought I would start this one out with some very fancy introductory graphics. So this is our live Authentisign online class, and this way you'll remember what it is for. So we're going to take a look at electronic signatures. A couple of introductory pieces of information you need to know about electronic signatures. First of all, they are legal in Virginia, and they are far more secure than any other kind of signatures that you can use, even signing in your presence with a pen and ink, because you realize in our day and age, any 11-year-old with an inkjet color printer can put your signature on any document they want, and you won't be able to tell they didn't do that. So I'm going to talk about how to do it. I'm going to talk about the security that is involved in it so that you can reassure people of its security. It's very easy to do. And more importantly, it's very easy to sign from the other end. So let me begin by giving you the most important homework assignment involved in this entire class. And that is that you have to do about 5 fake ones before you do one on purpose. So you need to set some things up in Instanet and send them to yourself to be signed, or hook up with somebody else and trade things back and forth so that you know the process of setting it up as and the steps and stuff familiar and automatic for you, and so that you know how things are signed at the other end. Because you would agree that when you send something to somebody to be signed, it's very likely that it's the first time they've signed something through Authentisign, right? Which means they may call you and say, I've never done this electronic signatures thing before. I'm a little nervous. Can you walk me through it? And that means a really terrible answer would be to say, sorry, I've never seen one of those from your side myself before either. You need to know what they have on their screen without being able to see their screen, or at least the main steps. So when we're done, you've got to do a handful of these for fake so that the process becomes automatic for you. And then you can not only set it up quickly and efficiently, and you can help your customer through it when they call you. The other thing that I want you to realize is how much better they are for you to use. So I do have a question. Who can tell me when a contract is a contract? Good question, right? Go ahead, take a guess.
You mean when it's fully ratified?
Yeah.
When it's been signed by all parties and delivered and received.
And delivered, that's right. Signed, sealed, and delivered. Yep. So Authentisign does that better than anything else, because once everything is signed, then everybody gets a copy and delivery has taken place. If you had 2 offers on a property and one was done with Authentisign and one was done in pen and ink, but the pen and ink one was much better offer, the Authentisign one arrives first. Which one counts? The Authentisign one, even if the pen and ink one was signed before Authentisign was signed. Because it didn't get delivered, the Authentisign offer rules. So the other good reason for using electronic signatures is that it takes care of the whole process, including delivery, and completes ratification instantly, as I like to say, at the speed of email. So those are all the reasons. I'm going to put my screen up here for you so that you can see it. And we will make sure that you can see it. So can everybody see the CVR MLS screen here and my mouse moving around on it?
Yes.
All righty. And there are multiple ways for getting into Instanet and multiple ways for getting to Authentisign. Authentisign is part of Instanet. It's part of Transaction Desk. We did that class a couple of weeks ago, but we're going to focus on the electronic signatures part of it. So I can go here to Transaction Desk and go into Transaction Desk directly, or I can go into the MLS first, and that's what I'm going to do right now, because it's my opinion that most of the time when you're using Instanet and you're using Transaction Desk and you're using Authentisign, you're probably already in the MLS. And so once I get into the MLS, I can go up here to the Links tab and click on that and go to Transaction Desk here, or I can go to the widget down here, Additional Resources, and click on Transaction Desk here, or I can be on a particular listing. And let's see, I'm going to find somebody's listing here. And we'll look at this one here on Forest Hill. I don't know whose it is, but it's one of ours. What do you know? Ken Rowley has a new listing today. How cool. Good for you, Ken. And we're going to go ahead and go to Transaction Desk by clicking on the TD here, or by staying on the one-line list. There's a TD on that line as well. All those ways will get you into Transaction Desk. We're going to go in the manual way. I'm going to go to Links, and I'm going to click on Transaction Desk here. And up comes Transaction Desk in a moment. Here it comes. Please wait. I'm thinking because everybody's working from home, the internet itself has gotten a little more sluggish than it normally is. So can everybody see my agent dashboard here in Transaction Desk?
Yes.
Now, just like everything else, you can access Authentisign in more than one way from inside Transaction Desk. If I click on the hamburger here on the left, you can see Authentisign appears right here. And this is if you want to use Authentisign all by itself. You just want Authentisign for getting something signed that you have on your computer somewhere. Because you can use Authentisign for anything that needs to be signed. It doesn't even have to be related to a transaction. So for example, if you are one of the people who want to get a hometown agent website, I take care of that for you. Yes, this is a brief commercial. And if you wanted one of those, I would send you the application for it to sign through Authentisign, and you would sign it, and I keep that on my computer. The other way you can access it is from inside a transaction. If I were to go into one of my transactions and open it up, it has all of the documents and forms in it, all of the people in it that are involved in that transaction. And I can click on signings there and create signing sessions for all the things that need to be signed inside of a transaction. The third way, the way we're going to do it for the purpose of today's class, is I'm going to go here to Instanet Forms. And this is where I can access all of the individual forms one at a time. And so we'll go down here to listing agreements and related forms. And I'm going to open up a brand new standard agency listing agreement. So I'll go over here to the Pearl Onions and click on new, because we want a brand new one. We're going to make believe we're listing a house and getting it signed through Authentisign. So I want to create a new standalone form. And this is the best way, by the way, to do that homework that I suggested. Is go here, just pull up an individual listing agreement or purchase agreement, whichever you prefer. I'm using a listing agreement just because it's a little simpler than a purchase agreement. And then send it to yourself to sign it, send it to your best friend to sign it, list your mom's house and send it to her, you never know. List it for $2 million and you know, if you get a buyer for it, she'll probably take it. So this is probably the easiest way to practice. So here we are in a listing agreement, and I can fill this all out. I'll talk briefly about some of the things that you can do up here, but do you all see this little pen at the last menu item at the top?
Yes.
That's where I can click, and it'll allow me to get this particular document signed through Authentisign. So any questions about any of the things I just briefly went over about how to get in and how to find stuff and where they're located? Any questions? All right, I'll take that as a no. That's very good. So we're going to go ahead and fill this in. And so we have Hometown Realty here, and I have the firm address. That's because my browser is remembering this, by the way. When you use it, you will have to type all this stuff in. And I guess I'll list Paul McCartney's house here. And he lives in Hanover County. It's not the Paul McCartney you're thinking of. And the street address will be, we'll use my street address. And so you go ahead and fill out the whole listing agreement. I'll add an expiration date. We'll make this expire on the 31st of May. And so you go ahead and fill out the entire agreement. We're not going to bother to fill out the whole agreement. Not today. You should know how to fill these out. And if you don't know how to fill them out because you're brand new, I'm about to give you another homework assignment. And that is go in here and fill 3 of them out, one at a time. Fill them out as best you can. Read them, which a lot of our veteran agents haven't always done. And go ahead and fill it out and bring it to your sales manager or bring it to someone that you know in the office who's been around a while and basically say to them, I took a shot at filling it out. How'd I do? And they'll go over it with you. And it's the best way to learn how to do a listing agreement and the best way to learn how to do a purchase agreement to start. And then, of course, take the classes that we offer on listing agreement and purchase agreements and get all the information that you need. The 2 most important documents, the 2 most important tools that you need to become very, very familiar with are the listing agreement and the purchase agreement. So highly recommend that you do that. So here we are on the listing agreement, and we've got it all filled out. We're listing Paul McCartney's house. He happens to live at the same address as I do, but he plays guitar way better. Up here at the top, we have a lot of different choices. I'm not going to go over all of them, but I'll point out a couple of them to you. Under File, I can save this. And there is an auto save in here, but I'm a belt and suspenders guy. So if it's an important document, I will still go here from time to time and click on save just to make sure. Save as PDF allows you to save it to your computer. Once you save it as a PDF, it's no longer fill outable. So this one saves it as a form and you can still fill it out. Down here, you can print it. Down here, you can go to send and click on email and make sure you can email it. And that's the other part of your homework assignment. Make sure you not only know how to fill one of these out, but you know how to print it and you know how to email it. And then when you're done, you can click on exit. Under fonts, you can select different fonts for the parts that you filled in. I like Helvetica Bold Oblique just because it sounds cool. And I'm going to make it blue so that when I put this in front of my customer, they know the parts that I did as opposed to the parts that I was not responsible for. And under clauses, this is kind of cool. There's a place in here to put all the little clauses that you routinely add into your listing agreements and your contracts and save them so that instead of having to type them every time you fill out a piece of paperwork, you can just go get them and paste them into your agreement. And then lastly, of course, is getting it signed. So before we leave this page, while this is not a class on how to fill out a listing agreement, any questions about the listing agreement or the purchase agreement that aren't too complicated for someone as dumb as me that you might have? Great. Then we're going to go ahead and get this signed. We're going to assume we filled it out, and we filled it out perfectly. So here we go. I'm going to click on the sign. Do I really want to do this? Yes, I definitely want to do this. And so now it's saving the document and setting it up in a Authentisign signing session. Now I'm going to go into as many details as I can for you, but if I touch on something and you had a question about it, please ask the question, because if you have the question, it'll be a good question, and the people who are watching this video will want to know the answer to that question as well, or at least where I can get the answer to that question for them. So there are 4 steps to setting up a signing session. And the first one is already open. You can only do 1 step at a time. And so we're going to give this signing session a name. You should name it based on what it's for and what it does. In other words, this is Spicewood Court. I might change this to Paul's House Initial Listing Agreement, so that I know what the signing was about. Because once Paul signs this, he's going to sign a lot of things over the life of this file. Maybe some price changes, maybe some extension changes and such. And so when you look at your list of signings, you want to know which is which. So name it so that you know who it's for or what property it's for and why it was being signed. And it'll make your looking at your list of signing sessions a whole lot easier. You have 2 choices, sign in line or simul-sign. Let me just say 95% of the time you are going to use simul-sign. It means it's going to send this to everybody who has to sign it at the same time, and they can all just sign it pretty much at the same time. You don't care, nobody cares who signs it first. And that's going to be the case 95% of the time. Sign in line you use when it matters who signs first. You know, you have one person of the family who's selling the house who's in charge, and they need to sign it before everyone else. So you use sign in line. And what it does is it goes to the first person, they sign it, then it goes to the next person, then they sign it, and so forth and so on until everyone has signed it 1 step at a time. Now, there are a couple of different options under each one of these. I'm going to click sign in line just for today. And down here, we have some advanced options, if you can see them all. The first 2 are completely optional. I probably would rarely use them, but you can. Set an expiration date. If this were an offer, I could click here and say this offer expires at whatever date I put into that little spot there. I prefer to put that right in the contract if this were a contract, because it allows me flexibility. This is a computer. If you put an expiration date in there and it goes 1 second past it, then this is dead. Whereas if I put it into the purchase agreement and a half hour before it's up, the guy calls me or the lady calls me and says, my cat has to go to the vet right now. Can I have another couple of hours? I can just go ahead and say yes, obviously, if I want to. Same with reminders. This says send a reminder in 4 hours. Well, I can tell you if I send this to be signed and it hasn't been signed in the next hour, I'm already on the phone making sure they got it, making sure I type their email address and that sort of thing. So you can use them, they're optional. The one that is not optional, that is very important, that most people don't realize what it does, is this one right here, Authentisign ID position. This is important if you are getting something signed that has already been signed by someone else using Authentisign. You know, you're the listing agent, Neely's the listing agent, and Gary, you sent an offer over on her listing and you had it signed by your clients. And so now she is going to send it to her people to get it signed. When Gary's people signed it, it put a security number in the upper left-hand corner of the document. Banks like to see that number because it's part of the security. So Neely, what you would have to do is pick a different corner. Otherwise, both of your security numbers, they're very long and complicated, would wind up right on top of each other, and you wouldn't be able to read either one. And there are people who want to be able to see those numbers, and especially banks sometimes want to see those numbers. There have been instances where banks turned back a contract for the mortgage because they couldn't read the security numbers. So if you're getting something signed that's already been signed by someone else on a previous signing session, then you need to pick a different corner so that your security numbers will also appear on the document and be readable. The other one I want to point out to you, this one only shows up under sign in line. Do y'all see where it says accept counteroffer?
Yes.
Never, ever, ever check that box. You're not ready for it. I'm not ready for it. Nobody I know is emotionally ready for that box. What it will do is it will actually allow the participants to make changes to the document before they sign it. Yeah, that's my thought too. Ooh. We all want to be present and directly involved when that happens. Eventually, it's designed to allow us to not only get things signed, but to do the entire negotiating process through Authentisign. But before that happens, our firm would want to study it very carefully, probably set up some hometown policies involving the use of it. So for now, I would recommend that you never ever check that box until we all know how to work in an environment like that. Fair deal?
Fair deal.
All righty. And if I go back to SimulSign, that goes away, but I do still have available all of the advanced options. Now, I want to show you how signing works. I am going to leave this on SimulSign. And we will go ahead and get something signed. And I am going to take us into our email at the end of the class, my email rather, and show you how people sign things. So any questions about step 1 details? All right, then I'm going to close that one. And we'll go to step 2, participants. And I have 3 choices here. I can add a new participant, and you can see this pop-up screen right at your end.
Yes. Yes.
Which is what we're going to do. We need to add some people who are going to be involved in this. I can add from contacts. What happens in Authentisign is every time you do a signing session or anything really in Instinet, you can save the people in its address book. It's not connected to any other one. It's not connected to the one in Matrix. It's not connected to the one in your email. Someday that technology will exist, but it doesn't yet. And you can bring them in again. I'll show you how you make sure they get saved in your contacts, because you should always do it, because you're hoping for the rest of their life you are working with them on all kinds of contracts and paperwork and signing. And then the last one is you can add yourself. Anybody know the only time you add yourself when you're doing a signing session? I'll tell you then. You only add yourself if you are actually signing something. If you're not signing something, you don't have to add yourself because you created the signing session, and when it's all done, you will get a final copy of everything. So you only have to add yourself if you are actually going to be signing something. We're doing a listing agreement. Do I have to sign something? Everybody say yes. That should be automatic for you at this point. Yeah, you have to sign the listing agreement. So I am going to add myself. And here we are on the screen where this gets set up. And this is probably the most important part of the class for you to understand. So I'm going to take my time a little bit and go over your primary choices here. You have 4 choices up here at the top. Remote signer, which for now is probably going to be the only one that you use, at least to get started. It's going to send this to their email anywhere in the world where they can get their email, and they can sign it from wherever they are. First time I used this, it was a listing agreement extension. The wife was here in Mechanicsville. The husband was on a plane on his way to Indonesia, and the listing was going to expire in 4 hours. So we used Authentisign. She signed it right away. He signed it remotely when he arrived at the airport in Indonesia. Actually, it was quite cool, and everything got signed at the same time. Remote signer is what you're going to use most of the time. In-person signer, we're going to talk about that a few times, is really cool because it allows you to get them to sign electronically when they're sitting right there with you. It's something that's very easy to use, so I really, really encourage you to practice it as well and get to use it. Because what it does is, instead of sending it to their email, it sends it to your email. And the assumption is, if you're in the office with them in the conference room, you can get your email up on the screen, or you can get your email up on your own computer or even your own tablet. Or if you're meeting with them at their house, you can get your email up on your tablet. Or if you're meeting them on the side of the road, on the hood of your car in the vast uncharted wilderness of Powhatan, and you've got a cell phone signal, you can meet them on the side of the road, and by the way, I have done this, and pull out your tablet or your phone, and they can sign, because you can access your email on any of your devices. So it puts that personal touch in that a lot of people say, I like to get my stuff signed when I'm with the person as much as possible. Well, this lets you do it. So you should learn to do this. It's almost identical to remote signer with 1 or 2 extra steps. And then we're going to talk about reviewer, and we're going to talk about CC only in a few minutes. Here's the Save to Contacts button. So you should always check this button, this checkbox rather, and it will save this person's information in your address book here, so that for the rest of their lives, if they need to sign something for you, they will be available. And the rest of this information is optional. It put it in for me because it already knew who I was. Down here at the bottom, you have custom signatures and initials. This is frequently used for things like power of attorney, for executrix for the estate of, CEO signing on behalf of corporation, those kinds of designations, although it can also be used for people who want their name to appear in a particular way. And then down at the bottom, you can include a subject line for the email and add an email message, you know, something like, when you get this, if you're not sure what to do, call me and I'll walk you through it, which of course presupposes you've done about a half dozen on your own already, so that you know what they have to do when you're not with them, if they're doing it remotely. So this is me. I'm going to leave me on remote signer, and I'll click on add. So this screen pops up right now. And what it wants to do is it wants to help you place all the places that are going to need to be signed and need to be initialed. Because our paperwork was originally designed in the ancient days when we wanted things signed with a ballpoint pen, it won't always get it exactly right. It tries real hard, and someday our association will take a closer look at designing the forms to conform more to electronic signatures. It's not a big deal, but what you could find if you use this is it puts some initial places where you didn't want them. And unless you're real familiar with the document, you might wind up having your customer initial something that you didn't intend for them initial. So I generally tell people who are getting started, until you are fairly familiar with the documents themselves, leave this on ignore and just save it. So we've got me, I have to sign it, but I also have to have a seller, correct? So I'll go back here to add participants, add new participant, and we need Paul McCartney to sign this. And these are both red because they are required, because obviously we can't do this with Paul unless we put in his email address. So I'll put in his email address. And by the way, if you're going to do the homework assignment and do the practice, you have more than one email address, I'm sure by now. Most of us do. If not, go set yourself up with another Gmail account or something like that. But don't do what I just did. I made up an email address for him because with the kind of email I have, I can do that. I have a kind of email that lets me make up fake email addresses, and they work. You don't. So if you make up a fake email address for your practice, it might actually be somebody's email address, and they will be terrified when they get this thing from you asking them to sign something. So use your own email addresses, and if you can, use 2 different email addresses. So I can fill the rest of this out if I want to. I don't really need to. I will click on Save to Contacts, but I'm going to make him an in-person signer so that I can show you how it works and explain what it does. What's going to happen if I leave him on a remote signer? He's going to get an email, and I'll show you this at the end of the class. The email is going to have a place for him to click to sign it. It's going to walk him through about 3 or 4 steps to do the signing. It takes about 25 seconds to do. It's really very simple. And then when he's done, you can look in here and see that he signed it. But I'm going to do an in-person signing. I'm meeting Paul in his basement recording studio, and he's going to sign it on my tablet. So notice it changed to my email. It's going to send it to my email because I can access my email on everything I have, on all my computers, on my tablet, on my phone, and he's going to sign it on my device. So what it wants is a signing host pin. On Remote Signer, they had a place for a pin, but you only use this really for in-person signing. So when I go to in-person signing, it becomes red. What I want you to understand about this is what's known as a one-off. It's only for this signing session. And so you can always use the same pin all the time, every time you do one of these. The only thing that matters is when you set it up, your signer should not know what it is. So for example, if I were sitting here with Paul and we were setting this paperwork up in person and I was going to get him to sign it in person, at this point, I would be ready to type here, and then I would say, Paul, look, a squirrel. And then while he looked away real quick, I'd type it in and go to the next step. Or you could just say, Paul, look away from the screen for a moment. I have to put in a security number. And I use one that's real complicated. I use so that I can remember it. 1, 2, 3, 4. And you are welcome to use the same one as me. There's no secret about it because it's only for this signing session. And you want to be able to remember it so that when Paul goes to sign it later and you have to use it, you don't have to say, I forgot the number. So make it real easy to remember and use the same one all the time. It really doesn't matter. Because here's what it does. When Paul goes to sign this on my, it's going to come to my email address. I'm going to have an email. I'll click on the place in the email that opens it up for signing. And basically, there'll be a 4-step message there that in all essence says, hand your device to your client. So I'll pass my tablet over to Paul, and he'll go through the same signing process that he would go through if I sent it to his email. except at one point it's going to ask him to put his email in so that he can get a copy. When he's all done, he's going to get a message on there that says, now give the device back to your agent. So I do get to keep my tablet. That's good news. And it'll ask me to go ahead and put in this PIN number. That's my way of certifying that my client, in this case Paul, signed it through my email. Because normally with remote signing, the email is part of the security. And so it's really that simple. And you'll see how it works at the end. I will go ahead and sign it. And so you can use the same number every time. It's a one-off for each signing session. And once you're done, it doesn't matter if they know the number anymore. So I'm going to use that number. I also suggest you always add a role, and he is going to be my seller. And of course, I can fill out the rest of this information and any custom signatures that are needed. Since it's going to my email, it doesn't bother with a place down here to put an email message. It assumes I know that I'm doing this. All righty, so I'm going to add that person. And so now I have both. Remember I said for now, ignore this mapping until you get very familiar with the system. So I'm going to change this to ignore, click on save. But I am going to add some more people. What I want you to get in the habit of doing when you're on this step, especially if you're doing it inside of a transaction. Remember, we're just getting a single form signed for today. Is I want you to take a minute, take a sip of your genuine hometown coffee and ask yourself, who is going to be involved at some point in this file, whether it's a transaction or whether it's a paper file you're working from. Think of who might at some point be involved with this paperwork, need a copy of it or in some other fashion like that. Less with a listing agreement, more with a contract, if you think about it. You might already know who the inspector is going to be. You might already know who the closing agent or attorney is going to be. You have to submit copies of your paperwork to your office agent services coordinator. And so you could put them in here at this point and make sure they get a copy. The more people you think of who might at some point touch this, and you put them in here now, the easier your life is going to be down the road, especially if you're doing it from inside of a transaction rather than working with an individual form like we're doing here. That will save you work down the road. Now, I do, for example, happen to know who Paul's attorney is, and he asked for a copy of this once it's signed. So I'll go up here to add participants, and I've worked with him before, so he's already in my contacts. So if I click on add from contacts, it will give me access to my address book. His name is Dewey, and he's Dewey Shaftum, the lawyer guy. And yeah, that is an attorney joke. You've probably heard it before. My brother's an attorney, and I collect them because they're good for his growth and development. Now, there are two choices left here. Let's talk about both these choices. One I use as often as anybody wants me to. I don't care. The other one I only use if I'm forced to use. He's going to get a copy, so I'll make him CC only. But do you all see reviewer here? I want you to think about what that does. Remember, we talked about at the beginning of the class, when is a contract a contract? When it's signed, sealed, and delivered, correct?
Right.
Well, Authentisign doesn't deliver anything until everybody who's in it does everything they're supposed to do. Which means if I make somebody a reviewer, the contract isn't distributed until the reviewer reviews. I avoid giving someone the power to prevent my contract from being delivered if I at all have to. If I make you a reviewer, Gary, and you didn't even know that was possible, and you'd never heard of Authentisign, and you got an email and you didn't know what to do with it, so you thought it was junk, so you what? Deleted it, right?
Yes.
I
Yes.
have had lots of agents call me and say nobody ever got their copies, and that's exactly what happened. They made someone a reviewer, the person didn't know anything about it, had never used Authentisign, deleted the email, and they had to go back and resend it all over again. When else might this happen? Oh, all sorts of things. My favorite one is mom's giving the kid the down payment. The last person I'm making a reviewer is mom. I took her out to lunch yesterday. We went over all the paperwork. She's really, really happy. So I'm CCing her, but I'm not making her a reviewer because until she gets comfortable and reviews it, no contracts get distributed. So my suggestion is only use reviewer when you are required to use reviewer, and make sure the person knows what a reviewer is, has used Authentisign before and knows how to review, and has done it before in Authentisign, which means you probably should at least make yourself a reviewer once so that you know what the process is. So I will rarely make somebody a reviewer unless required, but I don't mind CCing people, everybody who might need a copy of this contract. Any questions about that? Because it's kind of important. It's probably the primary reason why agents do Authentisign and find at the end, or they think it's the end, that no paperwork was delivered. All right, so I've got Dewey set up, Dewey Shaftum of Dewey Shaftum and Howe, and I will add him. And so there he is, and I'm also going to do ignore again and save. And so now I've got me as a signer, Paul as a signer, Dewey's getting a copy when it's done, and I can add as many people as I want to. If I had chosen sign in line, then there would be little markers here, and I could rearrange these in the order that I want the signing to take place. I can delete anyone by clicking over here. Any questions about putting your people in?
Yes.
Yes.
Question. So when you're CCing someone in there, do they get it each way throughout the signing process, or just at the end?
They only get it at the end, although I'll be honest with you, I'm a belt and suspenders person. I always make sure they're last on the list anyway. It just makes me feel more secure. But
Okay.
yeah, they only get the CC when everything is signed.
Okay. Thank you.
Good question. Any other questions? All righty, we're doing pretty good. So now let's go to documents. So I'll close this one, or I could just click on the plus sign and it will close the other one and open the next step. Since we started with the listing agreement, that is already here. If I were doing this from inside of a transaction, when I was on the participants step, it would have offered me all of the people that I'd already put into my transaction file. Same thing here if I were in a transaction, which is the class we did a couple weeks ago, and I got to this step, I would have gotten a pop-up window that offered me all of the documents and forms and everything that was in the file, and I could pick the ones that need to be signed. Since we started out with an individual form, they're already here, but if I needed to, I could click on Add Documents here, and I could go to Select Forms or upload a file, or even a transaction that I already have. If I click on Select Forms and go to Individual Forms, you can see all the forms are here. And so I could go grab some other forms that need to be signed so long as they were already filled out. You can't fill them out from this step. And by the way, one of the things I suggest that you do is remember that Instinet is the name of the company. Transaction Desk is the name of the part of it that does the entire transaction online, and Authentisign is just for the electronic signatures part, so that you remember where you are and what part of it you're in as you're using it. So I could go back here to listing agreements if I wanted to and go get a lead-based paint brochure if I had saved one or filled out another form for them. We're just going to work with the one for today because I want to keep the class fairly simple. Any questions about adding documents here? It's really not too difficult to do. So we're going to go to the last step, design. This is where you put all the places that need an initial and need a signature. It's kind of
Hey,
like,
John, I have a quick
yes,
question.
yes. That's Neely asking the
So are
question,
all of,
everyone. I thought I
sorry.
would tell everybody watching the video who you are.
Great. Are all of the documents eligible for Authentisign?
Everything that's in Instanet already, of course, is, and anything that you upload. Now, if you have a transaction, you've probably uploaded some other documents and you can pull them into the signing session. But let me go back there real quick for you. That's a good question. We'll go back, save and continue. You might have something on your computer that you want to add, some form or document that you saved or that somebody sent to you. So if I go here to upload a file, I can grab anything that's on my hard drive. And so I'm going to go here to my desktop and see what I have here. And so I could add this spreadsheet. No, actually, I don't think I can add a spreadsheet. I need to add something else. I can add this publication. I don't think it'll take a spreadsheet into Authentisign, but it will take it. And so there's my other publication. And now that's available to be signed. So as long as it's available, you can bring it in here. Even if it doesn't have a place to be signed, you just want it to accompany the signing session because it contains information that your customer needs to see, a disclosure of some sort, or a document with information on the property, and it needs to be part of the session so that it's in front of them. Does that answer your question? Okay, and so I'm going to delete this because we don't need it, so I'll click on the little X here. And yes, I would like to delete that. And so now we're going to go to design. And we're going to put in all the places that need to be initialed and all the places that need to be signed by all the people who are doing that. And what this is like, for those of you who have been around as long as I've been, is back in the dark ages of paper and pen, we used to have little stamps. In fact, all the mortgage people would give them to us. And you could stamp your contract with an initial here and stamp your contract with a sign here, or use little Post-it things with little arrows. You all remember those? Just say yes. I know none of you are old enough to remember that like me. Well, this is kind of the same idea as that. You're going to put in place where they initial and where they sign, and they're going to be clearly marked so that people can see where they're going to do that. In the upper right-hand corner here, we have drag and drop. That's where we're going to get those places from. Above that, I have a list of my signers. I'm on here, and Paul McCartney is on here. And so we're going to do each person one at a time. So I'll stay on me. I'll click on drag and drop. For today, you only need to know how to use the first one, the red sign here, and the third one, the red initial here. These others do other things, some of which we use, some of which we don't. You can worry about those at a later time. I'm the listing agent. So down here at the bottom, I'll scroll down to the bottom, and I have to sign down here. Now, if I had filled this out, probably my name would already be here. But I'm going to take this sign here for me. Notice my name in the upper right-hand corner. And I'm going to drag it down here and drop it where I have to sign. Now, it wants a date, so I could either pull the date stamp from here, or I can right-click. I like to right-click. So I'm going to right-click, and I'm going to click on date stamp, and I'm just going to put that over here. And when the market is busy, if this were a contract, you might even want to put the time there. If I right-click on my signing place, there's a time stamp, and I can even put that here. What that's going to do is at the moment I sign it, later on, it's going to put down the date and the time that I did that. And then I also need my name to appear here. So I can right click, add a name block, and put that down here. And now I'm all ready to go. I don't have anything to initial in the listing agreement. I just have to sign down at the bottom. And so I've put the place for me to do that. Any questions about that? It's really not hard, but it's good to do a handful of them so that the process becomes ordinary and you almost don't think about it anymore. So now we're going to switch to Paul. And Paul does have some places to initial, doesn't he? Now, you probably want to have already talked to Paul about these so you know which one of these he's going to do. And he's going to say yes because he's taken all my classes and he understands why he should say yes to all of the internet display choices. They're all in his best interest, and I've explained that to him. So I'm going to drag his initial down here, and I'm going to drag his initial down here. The question I usually got is, what if there's lots of people that have to initial? What if there's like 4 people? Well, you do the same thing that you do when you're doing it with a ballpoint pen. You squeeze them all in as best you can. They can overlap. They can be in a row over top. You can put them along the side if you have to. You just squeeze them in. You can make these larger and smaller by dragging the corners and maybe fit some more in that way. Whatever you have to do to squeeze them in. So I've got his initials in place. And so now I'm going to scroll down to the bottom. And he has to sign and date where it says owner. So I'll grab his sign here, which is the first one. And I'll drop that. Oops. Yep, no, I got that right. And I'm going to right click and add a date stamp for him. And by the way, sometimes when you do add the date stamp like that, they appear in odd places. You got to kind of keep your eye open. And I'll right click and add a time stamp, and that will go here. And we want his name to appear here. If I'd filled this out completely, of course it would be here, or rather under here, I'm sorry. So I'll add a name block, and there it is. And I'll put that underneath here. And so now he's all done. Any questions about putting in all the places? All right, I'm going to show you one more thing that you can do here because everybody asks where you can do this. I will tell you more and more agents are getting away from doing this. We are basically trained, especially if this was a contract, we are trained to negotiate the contract on the contract. In other words, to cross things out and get them initialed and mark them up. And you can do that here, but what's happening more and more is people are sending out an offer and then negotiating all of the changes, and then one of the agents does a whole new contract with the final agreement on all the terms and no markups, and sends it out for everybody to sign so you have a nice clean contract. And people are doing that more and more and more. But if I wanted to mark something out and get it initialed here, over here we have something called markup. Now technically this is not part of Authentisign. Authentisign uses Adobe Reader on your computer. So this uses Adobe's tools to allow you to do markup. The only ones you want to be aware of for now are the first one and the last one. The last one lets you draw a line. So if I click on it, I can go over here and draw a line through this clause. I'm not even looking at what it says, so don't panic. And if I wanted to really do it, I could click on it again and draw a line the other way and make an X. And maybe we wanted to make some changes, so I can go here and click on the draw text one and drag diagonally and make a little box, and I can type into the box whatever I wanted to say, and then I could go up here to drag and drop and pull down an initial here for Paul to initial. So that's how you can do markup if you want to do markup. And it just takes a little practice. Again, this should all be part of your practicing. But like I said, a lot of people nowadays are just using the initial offer on a contract to get the ball rolling. They do the negotiation back and forth over the phone between the agents and write everything down on a piece of paper. And then when everything is agreed to, somebody does the final contract clean and fresh with everything exactly right and sends it to everybody to sign. So there you go. Any questions about markup? Any questions about putting the initials and the signatures in place? All right, good class. Well, in that case, since all wizards work the same way, you do every step and then you look for any next button and you click on it. We have now finished this listing agreement. It's all filled out. It's all set up. All the places that need signatures and initials are in. So all we have to do is go up here and click on the next button. So last chance to ask any questions about what we just did. All right, then we will click on next. And I can customize the emails that are going out with this. If I forgot to do the emails when I set it up, I can click here and get caught up on that. Or I can send the invitations. I'm going to go ahead and send the invitations. Invitations were successfully sent. I'll click on OK. And there we go. That's all it takes to set up a signing session and to send it out. There are more tools in here that once you get used to the basics, you can start to use one or two at a time. And it's really not very difficult to use, but you've got to do a handful of them for fake before you try to do one on purpose. Please don't wait until 2 months from now when you finally have an opportunity to use this, especially if you're new, and then try to remember what you saw today. You've got to do a handful of fake ones before you do one for real with people that you hope will sign it and one day give you money. Before we go and look at how it's signed, I want to show you how the management part of it works. These are all my signing sessions. And so you can see why I told you to give it a name for who it's for and why it's being signed. And that's what each one of these tell you. The lightning bolt means that it's in progress. It's been sent out to be signed, but it hasn't been signed yet. The blue ribbon means it's finished, it's done, everything was signed, everything went great, and we are very happy people. This nuts and bolts one means I started setting it up, but I didn't finish the setup. So if I click on the one that we just did, I can see what's been going on. And here are all of the steps to getting it signed. This tells me over here on the right what the process is. These clocks mean nothing has happened yet. We're still waiting for it to happen. Once Paul here opens the email, he will authenticate it and we will get checkered flags here. How cool. We all love our NASCAR around here, don't we? And once he signs it, we will get a checkered flag here. So once everybody has signed it, they will all be checkered flags and we will be finished, and Dewey here will get his CC. One of the cool things is, remember I said earlier, if it's not signed in an hour, I'm already on the phone finding out why not. And suppose I find out I mistyped their email address by one character. I can go back in here, click on the edit, and it will edit their email for me and resend it to them automatically. So that's pretty cool. And then up at the top, I can add some additional people who need to be CC'd, and I can resend this whole thing if something just didn't go right. But you're not going to use those too often because you prepared well when you got to this point. So this is where you manage it. Any questions about this screen? It's fairly self-explanatory. All righty then. Well, we're actually done inside of Matrix, inside of Authentisign. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to minimize this window. And can you all see my email yet, or do I have to put that up on your screen?
Not
No.
saying it.
No, not seeing.
Alrighty, so let me go to share here, and there's my email, and click on share. Thank you for helping me with that. This is not automatic for me yet either. So now you can all see my email, right?
Yes.
And you'll notice I have some messages here. I will get a lot of messages. These are the emailed initial signing invitations. This one is for me, and this one is the one that goes to Paul. So this is the in-person signing invitation. This is the one that's coming to me because I made myself a remote signer because it's going to come to my email anyway, and it's simpler. So what's going to happen is when I open the email, I'm going to get another email that says something has happened. When I sign it, I'm going to get another email that somebody has signed it. When everybody has done everything they're supposed to do, I'm going to get a final email that says, everything's done, here's your final copy. And of course, since I used all my own email addresses, I'm going to get everybody's copy here. So I actually wind up getting a lot of copies. The only thing I'll tell you about this is sometimes the emails show up immediately like they did today, which is nice. But there are over 1 million users of Instanet across the country. And I have seen days where I've had to wait 10 or 12 or 15 minutes for them to process at the other end because there's a lot going on. Don't let that worry you. It can take more than just a few minutes on occasion. So here's how it gets signed. Yes, Neely.
Sorry, quick question. If you had not included yourself in this signing session, would you have still received these emails?
I'd have received the emails and I'd have received the final copy, but of course I wouldn't be able to sign it myself. That's
Even
why
if you were not part of it, you would get these emails that they were.
because I set up the signing session. That's why I said the only time you have to add yourself is if you're signing something. Because
Okay.
the system already knows you set up the signing session, so you get all the emails, all the notifications, and you will get the final copy. Okay? All righty, so I'm going to go ahead and sign it. So here's the email, and I always ask the question, where is the hard to find big blue start signing button on here? And the reason I say that is this is designed for you to send to people who've never done this before. And they kept it very, very, very simple. So click here, start signing, and it will open up to the signing screen. Let me know if you can see the signing screen. Can you see the signing screen right now? Okay.
Yes.
So we have some choices. First of all, please tell your customer to probably ignore this first step. It lets them pick a different font that their name is going to appear on the document, because it does appear on the document, even though it's not a real physical signature, so that everybody can know it was signed electronically. But it's an electronic signature. It doesn't matter at all what it looks like. So they can pick a different font if it matters, or if you are with them, they can spend the next 45 minutes trying to draw their signature with the mouse so that it really looks like their signature. I don't have that kind of time. So I tell everybody, you know, just ignore that. It really doesn't matter, but if they really want to do it, let them go ahead. And then I have to accept two things. I have to accept the use of electronic signatures, and I have to accept the use of Authentisign to do the electronic signatures. Does everybody have to do electronic signatures? No. But everybody does have to agree to the use of electronic signatures. And this is one of the places that they can do that. I leave this unchecked because I want this to come up every time I'm doing a class. So I'll click on accept. I have just agreed to the use of electronic signatures and the use of Authentisign. So now here I am. It's time for me to sign. Here is the bright red start button. And they make it real easy to spot. Click on start, click on the place I put the signature, click on complete signing. Sorry it took so long, that's just the fastest we could make it. Do y'all see this screen with this number here?
Yes.
When you do one of these for fake, print one of these screens out, put it in your little brag book of things so that when your customer says, our electronic signature is secure, you can show them this and say, somebody would have to guess this number to get into this particular signing session. That's pretty secure. And a different number appears for every single signing session. And by the way, that's the number that appears in the corners of the document, which is why I said if you're getting something signed that's already been signed by someone else, you want to pick a different corner. And so I'm going to close this particular screen. And notice I got an updated message, something has happened. So now I'll click on Paul's and we will scroll down. This tells you basically, you can summarize this by saying, give your device to your customer. Paul is theoretically standing right here. I'm doing the signing on my tablet. What you're going to tend to do is if you're doing remote signing, you're going to do the heavy lifting on your computer. You're going to have it already set up, you know, the whole signing session is set up on your computer, assuming you've already told them what goes in all the blanks and you've got it all filled out. And then you're just going to meet with them with your phone or your tablet. Today's modern smartphones, the screen is nice and big. It's actually big enough to do a signing. Your tablet or your phone probably isn't big enough to comfortably set up a signing session because the keyboard pops up and covers things and stuff. But it is the best reason that you have to tell your significant other that you want to buy a new tablet, a brand new tablet, so you can get people to sign all those contracts on it because it works great. So I'm going to go ahead here. I have my tablet now, let's assume, and I opened up my email and I clicked on the start signing button and then I handed my client the tablet. Now you probably can't see the signing screen right now. Is that correct? Just say yes.
Yeah,
so I'm going to have to switch to that screen now. And that one is, I've got two that look very much the same. It's this one. Okay. And click on share. So now you should be able to see the signing screen, correct?
Yes.
And it says, Mr. John Hicks, signing host Paul McCartney.
Right.
Again, it says, hand Paul the device. So I just handed him the tablet. Notice it says, remember, if you can't remember that PIN number, click here. You don't want to ever do that in front of your customer because you don't want them to know you couldn't remember the number you just typed in a few minutes ago. That's why I say use the same number all the time and make it real easy to remember. So we'll click on continue. Notice Paul has to put in his email. So it also captures his email for you. Maybe he hasn't given it to you yet. Again, we can change the font. We're not going to do that. And I'm going to click on accept. Or rather, Paul would have clicked on accept because I handed him my tablet. So here we are. I'll click on the start button. Paul, or he clicks on the start button rather, and Paul clicks or taps on this initial, and he clicks and taps on this initial. And if I made a change, he clicks on that initial, and he clicks on the signing part. And notice it put the date and time in here that he did that. He's all done, complete signing. And now, can you all see the PIN screen pop up?
Yes.
He gives it back to me, and I type in the number. This is why he's not supposed to know the number. It's just a security. He can know it after we're done, so he can watch me type it in at this point. Type in that PIN number, click on complete, and then once again, we are done. Now, this screen comes up when it's your client who's doing the signing. You can tell your customer, just click on no thanks here. It allows them to create a password for themselves that lets them get back into the signing session. I can't think of a real reason why somebody would need to do that. Maybe they want to get another copy for themselves when it's all done. Me personally, I'd rather have them just call me if they need another copy. I want to show them what a good service provider I am. So I'm going to go ahead and click on no thanks. Once again, they get that same screen with the number. And now all signings have taken place. That is the entire creation and signing process. Any questions about that?
Yep.
It's not hard to do in either end, but like I said, you need to do a handful of fake ones so that you kind of somewhat memorize the process. It won't always be exactly the same, but you want to know what each step is for, and you want to know what probably takes place in each step, especially because if you are working with your client over the phone or in person, you kind of want to have in your mind what you're going to do next, because it makes a much smoother presentation. All righty, I'm going to go take you back to my email for the last part here. So click on New Share, and there is my email. And you should all be able to see my mouse pointer on top of my email again, right?
Yes.
And look at all the emails that I got here. I got 3 signing completes, because remember, they were all coming back to me. So if I go to one of these, there's the complete signing, and I can save a copy of it to my computer. I can download a copy of it. The certificate, what this certificate is you may get a call from the bank that says, we got the contract, we want to see the signing security certificate, or whatever they might call it. That's what that is. So you just want to remember where you get it. You can also get it from inside of Authentisign itself. But you might get in the habit when this comes back of downloading that and keeping it handy in case you get asked for it. And it's
I have a quick question.
What's that?
Sorry, quick question about that.
Yes.
Does the certificate also get loaded into the transaction desk?
That's
Because
a
I
good
see that in
question.
mine.
I've never noticed if it goes in automatically or not. So you finally asked a question that I've not taken a look at. But if you do one for fake, you can go in there and see if it shows up. But it is available. Either it comes in automatically, or you can go to the signing session and get it if you need it.
Okay.
All right, the last thing I want to do real quick is, let's see if I can get back to the screen with Authentisign.
Mhm.
And I need to open that up so I can see it. And oh, did I close it? Maybe I closed it. Oh, I accidentally closed it. I wanted to show you the checkered flags, but I accidentally closed it as we were doing this, so I apologize. But if we went back to that screen where we managed them and went into the signing session, it would have a blue ribbon and it would have all really cool checkered flags. So guess what? Since I accidentally closed out of it, when you do your homework assignment, you now have something to look forward to seeing, the checkered flags for the first time. How much fun will that be? So, any last quick questions?
Nope.
All righty then. I am going to first of all stop the recording for the Authentisign class. And